Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you're not a conqueror or a builder or anything worth etching into stone. You're a wanderer by necessity, not by spirit. One of countless souls following a trail that barely exists across a land that isn't supposed to be there. You don't know what Alaska is or America or survival odds. You just know the mammoths moved east and the cold behind you is growing sharper by the day. The wind never stops, the land never softens, and the people beside you are thinning like the fur on your back. Before we set out, do me one small favour. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's oddly comforting to know who's tuning in from around the world. And if you'd like early access to more of these grim history stories, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. But for now, lie back, get comfortable, let's begin. You are not important. That much has always been clear. You're not an elder, not a shaman, not even one of the good hunters. You're young, perhaps 20 winters, if the count is right, and no one keeps very good count. Your mother once said your birth came during the season when the sun barely rose and the dog stopped barking, but that could mean any number of years. You carry hides, you gut fish, you follow orders. That is your place in the clan. The world around you is older than names. Snow lies across the land in thick folds, piled high on the bones of mountains and the wreckage of trees that gave up long ago. Wind blows across the steppe with a voice that never softens, only howls, always in motion, as if trying to erase the land it scours. Your clan's camp is a circle of misery, low shelters made from mammoth bones and stretched skin, blackened pits where fires sputter and fail, and people who have not laughed in weeks. Not the kind of silence that follows reverence or sleep, but the silence that follows despair, long, heavy, and bitter. Food has become a theory. Once the elders boasted of great hunts, and summer herds that passed so close you could smell their musk. Now, you survive on dried fish too small to name, and what little marrow you can suck from the last of the cracked femurs. The dogs grow thinner, the children quieter. Your belly is always half empty, but that's still better than some. 2 weeks ago, the old woman who shared a shelter with you simply didn't wake. Her skin was like birch bark, her bones so brittle you could hear them shift as you wrapped her in hide. No one cried. There's no spare warmth for grief anymore. At night, when you lie beneath patched furs and try to trick your body into thinking it's warm, you sometimes imagine walking away, just turning east toward the horizon and letting the wind carry you into nothing. Some say the dead are waiting in the mountains. Others say they're in the trees. You've stopped believing either. The cold doesn't feel sacred, it just feels hungry. And still, the clan endures. It moves slowly now, not from choice but from necessity. The hunters return with less each time. A week ago, one of them, Narik, with the crooked tooth and limp, collapsed halfway back from the river with nothing in his hands but frostbite. They say he begged to be left. They say the cold already had him. They say a lot of things now, all of them grim and practical. The elders call a meeting. That itself is a sign of desperation. They don't usually ask for opinions, but now they huddle near the main fire, which struggles in the wind like everything else, and speak in tones low and measured. You're not invited to listen, but you do. Everyone listens when survival is being bartered. There's talk of heading east, far east, past the white plains and beyond the rivers that no longer flow. A place some call the Crossing. You've heard of it, always in half-formed stories told by those who don't quite believe them. A land bridge, a stretch of earth that rises from the sea when the ice gods pull the water away. They say it leads somewhere warmer, somewhere with herds that still graze and trees that still drop leaves. You've never seen such a place. No one in the camp has, not truly. Some say their grandfathers went near it once long ago. Others say it's a lie made up to give people hope. Hope is in short supply, but so is food. And the mammoths, the few that remain, have begun moving east, Their prints were spotted in the snow last week, wide and shallow, and disappearing into the mist. Some believe that's a sign. Others believe it's a trap, but no one believes you can stay. That night, the shaman rubs ash across his face and speaks to the fire. You sit just close enough to hear his muttering. He asks the spirits if the land will carry you or swallow you. He throws a handful of dried grass into the flame, and it sparks once, then goes dark. No one takes it as a good omen, but no one argues. There's nothing left behind you but bones and silence. The decision is made without ceremony. In the morning you begin to pack. Your possessions are few: a stone knife, half wrapped in hide, a worn sling, a set of bone needles you haven't used in weeks. Your boots are stitched from reindeer hide and patched 3 times. The sole's thin enough that you can feel every crack in the ice beneath them. You add a strip of dried meat to your pouch, more out of habit than hope. It won't last the week. Your mother tightens your cloak with fingers already stiff from the cold. She doesn't speak. She hasn't spoken much since your brother didn't return from the last hunt. You think of asking her to come, but don't. She's not going. Her joints are swollen. Her breath comes wet and slow. She nods at you once. You don't know if it's goodbye or permission. Maybe both. The camp begins to move in a long, slow ripple. The strongest take the lead. You fall in near the middle, with the quiet ones, the followers. Someone ties the sleds with sinew and shouts at a dog that won't stop shaking. You watch the last shelter fall. It crumples like skin off bone. No one looks back. There's nothing behind you anymore. The wind comes from the west. It presses at your back with icy insistence, like it wants you to leave. You pull your cloak tighter, shift the weight of your pack, and take the first step into the white. The sky's a flat sheet of grey. The snow crunches beneath your feet, then swallows the sound. Ahead, the land stretches on, without feature or end. Just cold and more cold, and the quiet promise that this road will either kill you or keep killing you for a very long time. And so, you go. Not because you believe in the land bridge, not because you're brave, but because staying means death, and leaving only might. You go because the mammoths did. You go because the elders have no better idea. You go because the earth is moving, and if you don't move with it, you'll be buried like everything else. The cold does not care about your journey. The sky does not acknowledge your presence, but still, your feet move forward, one after the other, into a place no one has mapped, chasing a future that may already be dead. The wind pushes harder now. The last smoke rises behind you and disappears into grey. You don't look back. The first few steps are the easiest. Your legs still remember what it is to walk long distances, even if your stomach doesn't remember what it is to feel full. The clan moves as a loose column, some ahead scouting, others behind, dragging sleds that groan under the weight of hides, bone tools, and the dying hope that something better lies to the east. There's no trail to follow, no markers to guide you, just the slow, grinding motion of bodies pressed forward by necessity and a sky so wide it could crush you if it cared enough to try. The air is sharp. It slices through the gaps in your furs and bites at the skin beneath. You wrap your hands in hide, then re-wrap them an hour later when your fingers start to throb. It doesn't help. The cold is constant now. Not a wave or a bite, but a condition of being. The way heat might be in a fire or silence in a grave. Your breath steams out in short, ragged bursts, and the snot in your nose freezes before you can wipe it. Still, no one complains. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been said. The earth is hard. The sky is grey. You walk. By the second day, you've stopped trying to count the distance. There's no point. The sun barely lifts itself above the horizon before sinking again into the haze, casting a half light that leaves everything dim and directionless. The shadows are long, even at noon, and the landscape shifts underfoot. Patches of ice give way to frozen soil, which gives way to brittle grass, which gives way to more ice. You step over old bones, buried half in frost, a rib cage, a jaw. You don't know what they belong to, and you don't ask. There's no time for stories now, just walking. The first real sign that you've left the known world comes quietly. It's a grove, bare, twisted trees you've seen your entire life, the last real stand of anything tall. They lean like old men, brittle and hollow, their branches etched with age and wind scarring. You remember passing them as a child. You remember your brother daring you to climb one, and your mother yelling when you slipped. Now no one speaks as you pass through the grove. The dogs whine, a raven watches from a high perch, and when it finally croaks and flies off into the pale distance, the sound feels too loud for this place. You cross the last tree line by mid-afternoon. There is no ceremony, no farewell, just a fading sense of orientation and a growing awareness of exposure. Beyond the trees there is only ice and sky. The horizon stretches forever, a pale, shifting smear with no mountains to break it. The ground is hard-packed and uneven, cracked where the frost has split it, and jagged with shards of old permafrost pushing up from below. The wind picks up speed here, unchallenged by obstacle or shelter. It sweeps across the open steppe in wide, looping gusts, finding every seam in your clothing, every weakness in your defences. It whistles past your ears and into your skull until you begin to think it's not just outside you anymore, but inside. That night you sleep beneath a stretched hide draped over 3 curved mammoth ribs. The ground underneath is rock hard and unforgiving. You curl into yourself and try not to shiver, knowing it only wastes energy. Someone coughs, someone snores. The dogs whimper and shift restlessly, their sides heaving with cold breath. You close your eyes and try not to imagine what's coming. If the wind keeps up, your shelter won't last another night. By the 5th day, your feet begin to blister. The soft skin around your toes rubs raw inside your boots, and every step comes with a small, steady ache. You bite down on it. Everyone's suffering. One of the older men, Takun, who always smelled of fish, falls behind. He wheezes when he walks now, the cold too much for lungs that once rode boats in freezing rivers. No one tells him to hurry. They just keep walking, and he keeps following, each step a little slower than the last. You don't see him the next morning. No one asks where he went. The wind likely took him, or maybe he just sat down and decided not to rise. Food becomes a quiet obsession. You think about it constantly. Not in the abstract, not with longing, but with calculation. You chew dried meat and try to make it last longer than it does. You notice how often others reach into their pouches. You try to ignore how many glances fall on the sled where the stores are kept. No one speaks of hunger, but it's there, walking alongside you with each step, breathing on your neck. One afternoon the wind shifts. It's subtle at first, a different angle, a change in tone, but soon it carries something new. Salt, the scent of water. It's the sea, or what used to be sea, the wind dragging its breath inland, across what some call the land bridge. You try to imagine a bridge, something solid, something narrow and distinct. But this is nothing like that. Just more cold land, more flatness, more space that should not exist. The horizon begins to blur. You've reached the edge of Siberia, and it looks like everything else, blank, pale and infinite. You notice the silence more now, not the absence of conversation. No one's talked in hours, but the absence of anything. No birds, no trees, no rustle of grass or groan of water. Just the crunch of footsteps and the dry rasp of breathing. Even the dogs have grown quieter, conserving energy, or perhaps understanding in some instinctive way that this place doesn't want them. Each night you wake with the same thought, this can't go on, and yet each morning it does. You pack your things, rub feeling back into your limbs, and walk. A man loses his spear tip in the ice and curses once, then says nothing else. A woman stumbles on a rock hidden under snow and gashes her knee. She walks on it anyway. The wound seeps through her leg wrap by midday. No one offers help. On the 10th day, you climb a low ridge and look back. For the first time since you left, you allow yourself to turn around. You expect to see something. Footprints, drag marks, a distant glimmer of the grove, anything to mark where you've been. But there is nothing. Just wind-blown ice and white ground, unbroken. The trail is gone, swallowed. The wind has erased you already. You stand there for a long moment, heart slow and tired in your chest, and realise something simple and irreversible. You could not go back if you wanted to. The world behind you has closed. You are moving forward into a place with no path and no promise, and the land does not care whether you succeed. There is no return. There is only the walk and what lies ahead. You say nothing as you rejoin the others. No one notices your pause. No one needs to. They feel it too, the slow certainty settling in, like frostbite beneath the skin. You have left the world you knew, and it has already forgotten you. You expected a bridge. That's what the old stories implied. Something narrow, something liminal, a path between two places that begins and ends in distinct worlds. Instead, what you find is a world all its own. Vast, flat and grey. It isn't land so much as refusal. A continent that shouldn't be there. A stretch of wind-scoured nothing that yawns out in every direction, like the floor of some long-dead ocean. The elders say this land used to belong to the sea, that it's only here because the cold made the water vanish. You don't cross into Bering. You descend into it, slowly. Like stepping into a grave, you have to walk across before you're allowed to lie down. There are no trees here. No roots to slow the wind, no branches to mark the days. The sky above you stretches out in a bleached smear of white and faded blue, barely distinguishable from the ground. On good days, you can see for miles, just enough to notice that nothing is changing. No hills, no outcroppings, no shelter. When the sun shows itself, it does so reluctantly, skimming the horizon like it's afraid of being noticed. Most days, it doesn't bother at all. The earth underfoot is a patchwork of frozen mud and frost-heaved tundra, pocked with lichen and ancient grasses that crunch dryly beneath your boots. Sometimes you step into a hidden pocket of thaw and sink to your ankle in mud that grips like teeth. You curse, pull free and keep walking. You stop bothering to brush off the dirt. It will be back soon enough. You walk in silence because there is nothing to say. The wind drowns out all other sound, howling ceaselessly from the northeast as if trying to push you back toward the place. You've already left. It steals your breath and whispers threats through the seams of your clothing. At night, it claws at the edges of your shelter and moans like a dying thing. You begin to understand why the old ones said the wind had a soul, and that it hated you. Food is rarer now. The sleds carry less than they once did. You chew strips of dried meat until they taste like leather, and then chew them anyway. The few rabbits and ptarmigan you spot scatter before anyone can notch a bowstring. Even the foxes are thin here, their ribs showing through patchy fur, their eyes wary and pale. Traps go empty. Your stomach shrinks. You learn to sleep on hunger the way you'd sleep on hard ground, badly, but without alternative. One day, you find mammoth prints in the frozen muck. Wide, round depressions, their edges sharp enough to be fresh. The hunters whisper that the herd passed through only days ago. Excitement ripples through the group, silent but visible. You pick up the pace, trying not to run, trying not to hope too much. For hours you follow the tracks across the steppe, scanning the horizon. But by dusk the trail disappears into harder ground, and the wind takes the scent. The herd is gone. Or maybe it was never there to begin with. Maybe the prints were old. Maybe the mammoths don't want to be followed anymore. Water becomes its own kind of torment. There are no rivers here, no lakes that haven't long since frozen solid. You drink meltwater when you can find it. Crushed snow, warmed in a shared pot, or ice scraped into the corner of a fire that barely stays lit. It tastes like the air, cold and metallic, tinged with ash. Your lips crack. Your tongue sticks to the inside of your mouth. Once, in a half-sleep stupor, you dream of a stream so wide you can't see the other bank. When you wake, your throat aches and your mouth is full of blood from biting your own cheek. The fires become harder to start. There is no wood out here, just scrub and dry dung, neither of which burns well. You huddle close to the coals, breathing in smoke, eyes watering, trying to pretend it's enough. Some nights, it's not. Some nights, the wind is stronger than the fire, and you lie beneath your shelter, listening to the cold laugh its way across your bones. You begin to lose track of days. The sun rarely appears, and when it does, it hangs in place like it's thinking of leaving entirely. Sleep comes in fits, broken by coughing, by shivering, by the sound of someone vomiting bile into the snow. One of the dogs stops barking. The others avoid it. By morning it's stiff and half covered in ice. No one mentions it. The sleds grow lighter. Some nights, the wind howls hard enough that you tie yourselves together with rope and sinew, lashing wrist to wrist, so no one wanders off in the dark. The snow here doesn't fall so much as it drifts. Fine, dry powder picked up and carried for miles, stinging your eyes and sticking to your lashes. You keep your face covered as best you can, but frost still finds its way in. Your nose bleeds, your ears burn. You no longer feel your toes unless they hurt. The others are changing too. Faces once familiar now appear hollow, worn thin by the cold and the effort it takes to move through this place. Conversation is rare, and when it happens, it's clipped and utilitarian. No more stories by the fire, no laughter, not even the bitter kind. You think of the shaman back home, and the way he muttered to the fire when the grass didn't catch. You think maybe he saw this coming. You wonder if he's still alive. One of the women in the group, Rune, who once sang when she worked hides, has stopped speaking entirely. She walks near the rear, her eyes always low, her breath slow and shallow. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. On the third, she doesn't get up when the others do. No one wakes her. No one even touches her. They just pack their things and move on. You look back once and see her still lying there, half covered in drifting snow, eyes open but unblinking. The wind smooths her into the earth like she was never there. By the second week, you've stopped pretending this is a crossing. It's too vast, too bleak. You're not moving through Berinia. You're existing inside it. It is a country, a world, a frozen belly that you now live inside, and it has no intention of letting you out. The idea of somewhere else fades into abstraction. You can't remember the feel of trees or the sound of running water. You can't picture what warmth looks like. You begin to dream of motionless places, of stillness that isn't exhaustion. Your feet bleed. Your shoulders ache from the constant drag of the sled lines. Your breath fogs and disappears before your eyes. You wonder if that's what your soul will look like when it leaves. The group is smaller than it was. You don't know exactly when you lost the others, only that you did. They must have stopped walking, or walked in a different direction, or disappeared like the trail behind you. There's no sense of direction anymore, just forward, because backward is death, and standing still is a slower version of the same thing. You stop marking time, you stop expecting rescue. There's nothing out here to find you, and nothing waiting at the other side. Just more wind, more cold, more of you falling into the ice one by one. At some point, maybe a day, maybe a month after you left the grove, you wake to the realization that this is it, this place, this frozen wasteland, this open wound in the earth. This is not something you pass through. It is not a trial or a phase or a path. It is life now. Beringia is not a bridge. It is a continent that eats the hopeful and forgets the rest. And you are living here. For now, you thought the worst of it was the cold, the wind, the endless walking, but you were wrong. That was just the introduction. Because now the real enemy arrives, quietly, invisibly, and without mercy. Hunger. It starts gradually, like most things that end up killing you. The meals shrink, then vanish. At first, it's just smaller portions. One less strip of dried meat. One less mouthful of meltwater stew. Then, the broth thins. The scraps get stranger. A half-boiled hide shaving. A sliver of tendon too rubbery to chew. You pretend not to notice, but your stomach does. It groans through the night, a dull aching voice you can't quiet. Eventually the food just stops. You go to your pouch one morning, and it's empty. You check the sleds. Nothing there either. No one says it aloud, but it's clear. Whatever was left is gone. Hunting, which once offered a flicker of purpose, now feels like a cruel game the land is playing. The traps you set catch only wind-blown snow and the occasional snapped stick. Tracks vanish before you can follow them. You once saw a ptarmigan, just for a second, white against white, feathers lifting into the sky like ash. You almost cried when it flew away. Not out of frustration, but envy. It still had somewhere to go. The dogs whine more now. Their ribs show through matted fur, and their eyes have taken on a distant, glassy look. They still pull, but with less fight. You stop cursing them when they slow. You know exactly how they feel. One of them limps badly and can't keep up. By evening, it's missing. No one asks where it went. You know the answer. Someone behind you likely knows it too, but no one says a word. Hunger flattens everything, even guilt. Children stop playing. They used to laugh quietly around the fire, even in the cold, bundled shapes tumbling in the snow, building meaningless towers out of bone and ice. Now they sit still, blank-eyed, chewing their own sleeves or staring into the distance. Their skin takes on a pale, waxy colour that doesn't change, no matter how much they're rubbed or bundled. One little boy, Jarl, whose voice used to echo even when he whispered, hasn't made a sound in 3 days. He just walks, mouth slightly open, breath shallow. His mother carries him now. He's too light for it to slow her down. You try chewing leather, not the soft kind, the hard, worn pieces from a torn binding strip, boiled until it softens slightly, then gnawed until your jaw aches. It doesn't help. It fills your mouth, not your belly. You swallow because it feels like doing something. You've begun to think of everything in those terms, something or nothing. If it's not food, warmth, or shelter, it's nothing. You used to dream. Now you only calculate. Can I carry this? Will this keep me warm? If I stop now, how long before the wind buries me? At night, your dreams betray you. You see roasted meat, hot marrow scooped from steaming bone, fat dripping into the fire. You taste salt, grease, sweetness. You feel your stomach stretch with warmth. Then you wake, and the snow on your eyelashes tells you it was all a lie. You roll onto your side and hear someone retching nearby. Dry, useless coughs, the body trying to empty what isn't there. You close your eyes and try to go back to sleep, even if it means dreaming of food that isn't real. Your limbs grow heavy, not tired, heavy. You feel it when you walk, like your bones have taken on weight. When you crouch to adjust a strap or check a blister, it takes twice as long to stand again. Your hips hurt, your knees throb. You try not to limp, but everyone limps now. No one's feet are whole. You wrap them in hide, then re-wrap them at night, only to find the cloth stiff with blood or stuck to split skin by morning. You keep walking anyway. The alternative is to stop, and stopping is dying. You notice how still everyone is when you pause. The group doesn't settle like it used to. No fire building, no gear mending, no quiet talking. Just slumping down wherever there's space, faces drawn, eyes closed. A few eat snow, not to hydrate, just to feel something. One man tries to start a fire with frozen dung and a cracked flint. He gives up halfway through. The effort is worse than the cold. You curl under your cloak and listen to the wind drag itself across the steppe like a wounded animal, howling and hissing, full of ancient teeth. The silence deepens. Even the coughs and mutters are fading now. You begin to lose track of how many are left. At night, you can't remember who sat beside you the day before. In the mornings, faces look different. Not older, emptier. The cheekbones too sharp, the eyes ringed in shadow. One girl's lips have turned completely white. She no longer blinks. You think she's following you? You don't know her name. Someone dies during the night. You don't know who, and no one announces it. You wake to movement, someone dragging something out of the shelter. There's no ceremony, no last words, no songs, just a dull thud as the body is placed outside the circle. A few of the dogs sniff it. One growls, the others retreat. When you leave camp that morning, it's still there, already half buried by the wind. Your stomach stops growling. That's when you know things are turning. The pain is dull now, more of a pressure than a sharpness. Your body has started feeding on itself. You can feel your arms thinning, the skin around your elbows sagging slightly, as if pulled too tight over bone. Your breath comes faster when you walk, not because you're hurrying, but because it takes more to move the same weight. You watch your own hands shake when you try to tie a strap. You forget why you were tying it. One of the hunters doesn't come back. He left at dawn with 3 others, heading toward a rise in the land where someone thought they saw movement. By dusk, only 2 return. They're not running. Not even walking fast, they trudge eyes low, hands empty. No one asks what happened. If he fell, if something took him, if they ate what they found. It doesn't matter. He's not here. That's all anyone needs to know. Then the next day, one of the men collapses mid-step. No stumble, no cry, just a quiet thud into the snow, like a sack of wet fur. You don't see it happen. You just hear the silence that follows and turn to find him on the ground. Someone leans down, checks his breath. Then they stand, say nothing, and keep walking. The rest follow. You look down at the man, his face slack, eyes half-lidded, snow collecting in the curve of his spine. You wait for someone to speak his name. No one does. You don't know it either. The line moves on without him. You lift your foot, you put it down, then again. You don't feel the movement, not really. It's like watching someone else do it. Someone who looks like you. Someone whose hands are shaking. Someone whose stomach is eating itself, while the wind picks at the edges of what's left. You don't say a word. You just keep going. It's been 3 days since anyone spoke. Not by agreement, no one declared a vow of silence. The words just stopped coming. They didn't seem worth the breath. The wind drowns out most of what you try to say anyway, and what's left doesn't feel worth repeating. You know how cold it is. You know how hungry you are. You know the group is smaller than it was. There's nothing new to add. The snow has hardened underfoot, crusted with ice that cracks in sharp, brittle notes with each step. The air is painfully dry now, and every inhalation burns at the back of your throat. When you breathe too deeply, it makes your ribs ache. When you breathe too shallowly, you feel dizzy. You try not to think about which is worse. The sun doesn't rise so much as it leans over the edge of the world for a few hours, then slides back down without ever offering real light. The sky stays a pale grey, and the horizon remains blank in every direction. You begin to understand what it means to be nowhere. You're not between places anymore. You're simply in it, in the middle of a space that wasn't meant to be lived in, only crossed. And now even crossing feels like a lie. It happens in the afternoon, or what passes for afternoon, judging by the faint angle of the light. You're walking, eyes down, trying not to trip over the frozen ruts and invisible holes in the ground. Ahead of you, someone stumbles. You don't see who it is at first. You hear the thud, dull and final, followed by stillness. The group slows, not stops, just slows. One man kneels, another approaches, then steps back. You draw closer, not out of concern, but because the column is narrowing. It's a young man, younger than you, though not by much. You think his name was Jarrell. He was quiet, always walked near the middle of the line. You remember that he once traded a fish hook for a fir needle. That's all. That's everything. His face is slack, mouth slightly open, rimmed with ice. One hand is clenched into a fist, the other open to the sky. He doesn't move. You watch as someone puts 2 fingers to his throat, then shakes their head once. That's the end of it. The others don't speak. They begin unpacking tools without a word. Bone shovels, a flat stone blade, a half-broken wedge once used for splitting marrow. The ground is hard, impossibly so. The first few attempts to break the frost barely scratch it. You take your turn anyway. It's what's done. The earth gives slowly, resentfully, inch by inch. It's not a grave, not really. Just a shallow impression in the ice. You dig because you're supposed to. You dig because you don't want to be the one still standing when they place the body in. When the hole is ready, or as ready as it will ever be, 2 men lift him by the arms and legs. He's stiff now. His spine doesn't bend, and his head lolls to one side, as if still trying to hear something. They lower him into the shallow pit, tuck his limbs in close to fit. No one says anything. No one covers his face. A handful of snow is brushed over him, more out of habit than ritual. The wind begins filling in the hole before you finish. By the time it's done, your fingers are numb. You sit beside the nearest sled and try to work warmth back into your hands. The others do the same. One woman stares at the grave for a long time, her jaw clenched. She's chewing something, but you don't know what. Maybe nothing. Maybe just the inside of her cheek. The body lies there beneath the thin layer of snow, already blending into the colourless land. Soon, it will be indistinguishable from the rest of it. That night, the fire barely starts. The kindling is damp, or maybe the wind is stronger than usual. You crouch low and breathe into it, shielding the flame with your hands, but it keeps going out. After a few tries, you give up. The cold settles in early and stays. No one huddles close anymore. Bodies are too stiff, tempers too short. Everyone keeps to themselves, tucked into cloaks and silence, lying on thin mats of woven grass that do little to block the ground's icy breath. You lie with your back to the wind and your side to the place where the body was buried. You didn't want to, but there was no other space. The ground is uneven here, slightly raised, and the snow has already blown smooth over the grave. You pull your cloak tight and close your eyes. It's hard to sleep, but you try anyway. Exhaustion fights the cold. Sometimes it wins. Tonight, it doesn't. The cold stops being a sensation and becomes a thief. It doesn't just settle into your bones anymore. It starts taking things. Slowly, methodically, without drama. It steals in while you sleep, while you walk, while you blink into the wind with your hood pulled low and your fingers clenched into fists. It comes for the parts you don't watch closely. It starts with your extremities because that's where it always begins. Your fingers, your toes, your ears, the pieces of you furthest from the core, furthest from the fire, furthest from anything that matters. You notice it in the mornings first. The stiffness in your fingers doesn't go away after movement. They don't ache the way they used to. They're just numb, like wood. You rub them hard, slap them against your thigh, breathe into them until you're dizzy, but they stay the same. Pale, unfeeling. The skin begins to blister. Small, hard bubbles that look like they've been burned. Only the colour is wrong. Too white, with the faintest edges of blue. One man cuts one open with a flint blade to release the fluid. It's thick, yellow, smells wrong. He wraps it in hide and keeps walking. Toes go next. You don't see it happen, but you hear about it. A boy in the rear of the group starts limping. At first, it's just a stumble here and there. Then he starts falling. His father takes off the boy's boot and doesn't say anything for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is flat. He says they'll need a fire. Not for warmth, but for cutting. You've seen it done before. You've even helped once, but not like this. They build the fire small, just enough to heat the blade. The boy doesn't struggle. He's already too far gone. Someone holds his shoulders while the foot is laid across a flat stone. The father uses a sharpened shard of obsidian to slice through the blackened tissue. It doesn't bleed at first. The sound is wet and wrong, like cutting through frozen meat. Then finally, a few drops of dark blood. The boy doesn't scream. not right away. But when he does, it doesn't stop for a long time. He passes out eventually. They wrap what's left in hide and tie it tight with sinew. He can't walk after that. They carry him on the sled until it becomes clear that the extra weight is costing too much. Then they stop carrying him. You don't see what happens after that. You just notice the sled is lighter the next day. Your own hands aren't much better. You try to keep them wrapped, but the leather soaks through with sweat and snow, and eventually freezes solid. You have to peel it off sometimes, and when you do, your skin comes with it. You try not to look at your fingertips anymore. They've gone grey. The nails are loose. One of them came off when you scraped frost from the inside of your shelter. You didn't feel it happen. You just saw the blood on the hide and realised it was yours. There's no medicine, no salves. No one has the strength or time to boil herbs, and even if they did, no one believes it would matter. When something goes black, it's gone. That's the rule. The only hope is to cut early and clean before the rot spreads. You've seen 2 amputations in the past 3 days. One was a hand. The man tried to use it too long after it froze. By the time he asked for help, the skin had already split open along the knuckles. The flesh beneath was grey and soft, like old wood pulp. He didn't fight the blade. He watched it come, watched it cut, then passed out. When he woke, he looked at the stump for a long time before wrapping it in his cloak and turning away. No one offered sympathy. No one had any to spare. You try to help when you can. You hold limbs steady. You stoke the fire. You hand someone the blade when their hands are shaking too badly to grip it. But there is no real help out here, only decisions. You keep track of the signs. When someone stops complaining about the cold, you watch them. When someone's lips go blue and stay that way, you keep your distance. When someone sleeps too long, you make sure you're not the one who has to check their pulse. Everyone is dying, just at different speeds. One night, a girl screams. It's sharp, sudden, and cuts through the wind like nothing else has in days. You rush to her shelter and see her clutching her foot, rocking back and forth, eyes wide and wet. Her mother tries to hold her still, but she won't stop moving. Her foot is bare, swollen, the skin cracked like old ice. She'd taken off her boot to adjust the wrappings, and the cold found its way in. The flesh split along the arch, and now it's bleeding, freezing, bleeding again. They bandage it, but she won't be walking on it again. Not for a long time. Maybe not ever. She screams again when the wrapping is tightened, then finally goes silent. Not from relief, from something else. That kind of quiet isn't peace, it's something deeper. Something worse. You watch your own fingers obsessively after that. Each night, you unwrap them, check the colour, flex them just enough to know they still move. Each morning it takes longer to get them to bend. The joints are stiff. The skin has gone shiny in places. You rub them with grease from a scrap of old meat you kept hidden, but it only does so much. You start tying them together at night, just to keep them straight. Then one morning, you go to fasten the edge of your cloak, and your fingers won't grip. You try again, slower this time, using both hands. The strap slips. You try once more, and as you pull the knot tight, something gives. Not the rope, something inside your hand. A faint pop, then a dull throb. You look down and see that the smallest finger on your left hand is bent wrong, hanging by the skin. It doesn't bleed, it doesn't hurt, not really, but when you touch it, it comes away entirely. You stare at it for a long moment, the severed joint resting in your palm like a fallen tooth. The skin is dry, the bone is visible, at the end, a pale nub, smooth as shell. You wrap your hand quickly in mammoth hide, too quickly, too tight, but you don't loosen it. You tuck the finger into the snow and let the wind bury it. You don't say anything. You don't show anyone. You keep walking. One day you realise the elders are faltering. It starts with a limp, a hesitation at the edge of a stride, a longer pause when crouching to tie a strap. The eldest among you have always moved slower, but now they've begun to fall behind in ways that can't be ignored. You glance over your shoulder more often and see them shrinking into the horizon. Not because the distance has grown, but because they no longer try to close it. They're smaller now, bent, hollow-eyed. Their breath comes hard and shallow, and their steps look like they're made out of thought alone, willed into existence rather than carried by muscle. They don't complain. That would waste breath. They don't ask for help either. That would waste pride. Instead, they start to linger when the rest of you pack up in the mornings. You watch them coiling their straps a little more slowly, folding their cloaks with more care than necessary. You recognize the ritual for what it is. They're not preparing to move. They're preparing to stay. By this point in the journey, you've already accepted many things. That food is scarce, that warmth is temporary, that names disappear faster than bodies do. But when the elders say they're resting, and that you should go on without them, something in you still twists. It's not surprise. It's not sorrow exactly. It's the last flicker of the part of you that still believes people deserve more than this. That death should come with ceremony, with reverence, with dignity. But it won't. Not here. Not now. The first to say it is Araka. She's the oldest woman in the group. Nobody knows how old, but old enough to remember stories about times when winters were mild and fish came in swarms instead of ones and twos. She's walked slower every day, her frame wrapped in layers of stitched hide and thick fur, though it's done little to keep the wind from slicing through her. When she speaks, her voice is rough and low. She says her legs won't carry her any farther. She says she'll sleep better without the walking. She doesn't ask permission. She simply sits beside a slab of frost-split rock and begins unpacking her belongings. Someone asks if she wants to be carried. She smiles once, then shakes her head. It's not a kind smile. It's one of those expressions older people wear when they've heard something stupid and are too tired to argue about it. She says to save the strength for the living. Then there's Vel, whose knees have been swelling since the first week. You've seen him rub them at night, muttering under his breath, biting his lip when he thinks no one's watching. Today, he doesn't even try to rise when the others begin to move. He just waves a hand, motioning for people to go on. When you pass by, he presses something into your palm, a smooth, black tooth, worn with age, bound in a thin cord of sinew. He says it belonged to his mother, that she wore it when she crossed the ice long ago. You nod. You tuck it into your pouch. You don't say thank you. He doesn't want to hear it. They ask for firewood, both of them. Not to stay warm, but as a kindness, a final comfort, something to hold the cold off long enough for sleep to take them gently instead of violently. But there is no wood here. Nothing dry, nothing burnable, just scrub and snow, dung and wind. Someone offers a piece of frayed rope. Another gives up a bit of sled padding. You donate half of your wrapping cloth. It won't last the night, but it's something. And in this place, something is everything. No one cries, that would be a waste. No one wails or tears their garments or offers songs to the sky. The sky hasn't listened for weeks. The earth doesn't want witnesses. You all know this, so you nod. You press foreheads if they allow it. You offer what scraps you can spare. A blade, a strip of meat, a lump of salt. You say nothing of the truth, but it lies thick between your footsteps. Araka gives her flint to the youngest boy, still walking. She says he'll need it more than she will. Vel takes off his gloves and throws them toward the sled as you turn to leave. They land in the snow and are picked up in silence. It's understood. The journey continues for those still moving. The ones who stop become part of the land. You don't look back right away. You shoulder your pack. You adjust your hood. You check your bindings. Anything to delay the moment. But eventually, you face east, where the wind bites less and the sky threatens only snow, not memory. The column begins to move again. Slower than before, fewer than before, but still moving. You count the bodies by habit now. 2 fewer today. For a while, all you hear is the crunch of snow underfoot and the quiet, rhythmic drag of the sled. The silence behind you grows heavier with each step. You tell yourself they'll sit a while, doze, dream of warmer days. You tell yourself they'll drift off peacefully. You try not to picture the wind finding them, the cold settling into their joints, the moment their eyes freeze open. Then somewhere behind you, you hear it. A soft crack, like a branch breaking, only there are no branches here. It echoes strangely in the open space. Someone ahead of you pauses. No one says a word. You all stand there for a breath or two, listening to the sound fade into the air. Then the line moves again. You don't turn around. There's nothing to see, only more white, only more wind. You fix your eyes on the back of the person in front of you and walk. Days later, you hear someone shout. You think it's another collapse, or worse, another fight. But when you look up, shielding your eyes from the glare of wind-blown snow, you see the scout waving. Not in panic, urgency. He points to the horizon, then cups his hands around his mouth and calls something lost to the wind. You catch only one word, but it's enough to set everything in motion. Mammoth. You rise without thinking. Your joints scream. Your legs are numb, but your body moves anyway, as if the word itself had dug its fingers into your spine and yanked you upright. The others around you do the same. No one hesitates. Hunger overrides everything now. You leave the sled where it is. You barely remember to shoulder your pack. The dogs are already barking again, a hollow, frantic sound that cuts across the dead quiet of the plain. You squint into the distance and see it, barely more than shapes at first, like smudges on the horizon. Massive, moving. There must be a dozen of them, maybe more. The herd is strung out in a slow lumbering column, trailing across a low ridge like clouds crawling across the earth. They are far, too far, but real. The first real thing you've seen in days, their size makes you dizzy. Their motion is slow but steady. You can almost feel the tremble of their weight through your boots, even though it's only in your head. Someone whispers a prayer. Someone else sobs once, breath catching in their throat like it's too heavy to carry. The pace picks up fast. The group lurches forward like a wave breaking. You move together, side by side at first, then scattered as people choose their own path across the uneven tundra. It's not a run. No one has the strength for that. But it's faster than you've moved in weeks. Even the old injuries are ignored now. You clench your jaw and force yourself onward, because if you fall behind now, you will never eat again. By nightfall, the mammoths are still far ahead. You can barely see them through the haze, but the tracks they leave are unmistakable. Great cratered prints, deeper than your arm is long, crushed into the snow and frozen ground. Each one a reminder that they were just here, that you're not hallucinating, that this is something you might actually reach. You camp hastily, too excited to sleep, too weak to keep going. Fires flicker low. No one speaks. The only sound is the wind whispering through the ice and the steady panting of breath in the cold. The next morning, you set out before the sun rises. Some people look worse, sick, coughing, unsteady, but they walk anyway. You ration your strength the way you used to ration food. 500 steps, pause, another 500. You chew snow when your mouth dries. You shift the strap on your back until the pain becomes dull. You follow the tracks like they're leading to salvation, or at least to meat. The herd stays just ahead, always just ahead. You spot them more clearly now. Massive, shaggy creatures with curved tusks that glint like polished ivory in the half-light. You see calves clustered near their mothers, moving with surprising speed. You imagine the warmth of their flesh, the thickness of their fat, the smell of boiling marrow. You imagine slicing into one and watching the steam rise from its opened belly. Your teeth ache at the thought. By evening of the fourth day, the group has thinned again. Some turned back. Some sat down and didn't get up. You don't count anymore. It doesn't help. The herd is drawing closer, or perhaps you're finally drawing near to where they were. It's hard to tell. The snow in their path is trampled, the earth torn up by their weight. You find scat still wet in the middle. Steam no longer rises from it, but it hasn't frozen solid yet. They were here within hours. You press forward, limbs shaking, hands numb even inside your wraps. Your mouth tastes like iron. You've bitten your cheek without noticing. Your vision blurs. The air smells of nothing. Your mind drifts into strange thoughts. How large the sky is, how small you've become, how long it's been since you last heard laughter. The people around you are shadows now, hunched and swaying, spears gripped like walking sticks, no longer weapons of war, just something to lean on. Then finally, movement. Not far, not a dream. A calf, maybe a few hundred paces ahead. Smaller than the others, its steps uneven. It's lagging behind, turning its head like it's lost. The larger bodies are already cresting the next ridge, disappearing into low mist. This one hasn't noticed you yet. Or maybe it has, and just doesn't care. You draw your spear, your fingers barely hold it steady. You creep closer, breath slow, heart thudding like a drum inside your ribs. You can feel the weight of everyone behind you. Every footstep crunches like thunder. You raise your arm. You've thrown spears since you were a child, but never like this. Never with the last scraps of strength left in your body. You aim for the shoulder, where the meat is thick, where a well-placed hit might stagger it. You throw. The spear spins through the air in a wide arc and strikes the calf's flank with a dull, wet thud. Then it falls. Not the mammoth, the spear. It bounces off and drops into the snow. The calf stumbles, flinches, then turns. It sees you now. Sees all of you. It runs, not fast, not graceful, but enough. Enough to crest the ridge, to vanish into the mist where the rest of the herd already disappeared. You take a single step forward, then stop. Your knees buckle. You sink into the snow without grace, legs folding beneath you like broken sticks. Your hands land beside you, palms down, trembling. You stare at the ridge, watching the mist close over the trail. The tracks will fade. The herd will be gone. You stay there, kneeling in the cold, shoulders heaving, not crying. There's nothing left in you for that. Just air, just silence. Eventually, you hear footsteps behind you. Slow ones. Not everyone is coming. You don't know who fell. You don't ask. You don't move. You just wait. The mammoths are gone, and whatever strength you burn chasing them isn't coming back. The air feels heavier now. The silence tighter. And then, just as the last prints begin to fade, the sky turns against you. The storm comes without warning. No slow shift in the wind, no darkening of the sky like the elders used to say. One moment, it's just cold and silence, the usual company. The next, the air is moving sideways, howling through your clothes, dragging at the sleds, peeling back layers of fur like skin from meat. You don't even have time to shout before your hood is torn loose and your face is stung raw with flying ice. You duck, instinctively, as the gusts begin to scream louder than your own breath. There is no horizon, no up, no down. Just white. A wall of it. A swarm. The wind doesn't gust anymore. It presses like a hand against your chest, forcing you back, bending your knees. Your cloak flaps violently, nearly rips from your shoulders. You fall to one side and don't get up for a moment. Around you, figures scatter. Some are crawling. Some disappear entirely behind a curtain of snow, no thicker than a hand's span. You hear shouting, but only as pieces, muffled and torn away by the storm before the words reach you. Someone tries to pitch a shelter, but the hide is ripped from their hands and flung into the void like it weighed nothing. Another begins hammering stakes into the frozen ground, but the first pole snaps in half before the second is set. You crouch and cover your head with your arms, waiting for someone to lead, for someone to call a direction, for any kind of order. But there is none. The storm isn't a challenge. It's an erasure, a full blank swipe across the earth. You crawl finally, dragging yourself toward one of the sleds, shielding your face with your elbow. Snow bites at every inch of exposed skin. Your eyes water, then freeze at the corners. You find the others by accident, just shadows huddled low to the ground, backs turned to the wind. Someone pulls you in, and you press yourself between two bodies without asking who they are. There's no room for identity in a storm like this. Only heat, only shape, only silence. You don't try to build anything after that. You just crouch low and cover yourselves with whatever scraps haven't blown away. Fur, hide, the limp frame of a half-formed tent. It flaps above you like a dying bird, but it holds, barely. Someone cries out as the wind knocks them sideways. You reach out, but your fingers close on empty air. The scream fades into the snow. The fire is gone. It died before the second gust. No one tried to relight it. You wouldn't be able to see the flame if it were there, let alone keep it going. You clutch your hands under your arms and try not to shiver. Movement wastes energy. Talking wastes breath. You press your cheek to your knees and let the storm eat the world around you, inch by inch. Time breaks. There's no sense of it anymore. No way to measure it. The storm turns minutes into hours, and hours into something else entirely. You drift in and out of waking. You think you sleep, though it's hard to tell. Your body stops registering discomfort. The cold is no longer sharp. It's soft now, heavy, almost gentle. You know that's a bad sign, but you don't care. At some point the shelter collapses. You don't hear it exactly. You feel it, a sudden weight, a rush of wind that knocks the breath out of your lungs. One of the support bones snaps and drives into the ground beside your foot. A sharp edge scrapes your thigh. The entire hide folds in, and the cold pours in with it. Someone underneath doesn't get out. You don't know who. You don't check. You try to rebuild it in the dark, hands fumbling, eyes stinging, but the wind takes everything you try to place. A length of cord vanishes into the air. A fur pelt tears itself free. You scream into the storm out of instinct, out of despair. It doesn't hear you. It doesn't stop. You give up and curl into yourself again. Around you, others are doing the same. Small heaps of humanity wrapped in whatever hasn't yet been stolen. Your hands go numb again. Not just cold, useless. You tuck them between your thighs and wait. The storm keeps going. Eventually, the sound begins to change. It takes you a while to notice. The wind isn't so high anymore. The snow's still falling, but more slowly. The air no longer feels like it's trying to strip you to bone. You lift your head, just slightly, and see that the sky's still there. White, endless, but calmer. There's a stillness creeping in, the kind that follows violence. You realise the storm is ending, or at least sleeping. The morning doesn't feel like a morning, just less dark, less loud. You pull yourself upright, barely, your limbs resisting every movement. Your joints feel rusted, your lips are split. The snow has built up around your body in soft ridges. You brush it off and stand swaying. The wind is still whispering, but it's lost its edge. Then you begin to see the bodies. They're not spread out, they're hidden. The storm buried them gently, efficiently. Just the edges remain. An elbow poking through the drift, a clump of hair, a patch of fur now frozen solid. You begin uncovering them without thinking. The others join you. No one speaks. You work quietly, hands clumsy, mouths closed. You find 5, then 7, then more. One woman digs with her hands, not even using a blade, just her fingers, scraped raw and red. She pulls away the snow in frantic armfuls until she finds what she's looking for. Her daughter. You recognize the girl, a child no older than 10, always clinging to her mother's side, the one who once laughed at a bird taking off from a sled. Her skin is blue. Her eyes are closed. The mother picks her up and holds her for a long time, rocking slightly, making no sound. You expect her to bury the girl again, to let her go, to do what everyone else does in the end. But she doesn't. She just keeps holding her, rocking, as if there might still be something left, as if the warmth might return. You don't interfere. You don't speak. The others gather around one by one and begin to dig for the rest. The sky is silent now, flat and grey. The air is cold, but not in a way that screams. Just the usual, indifferent kind. The snow around you is littered with shapes and memories and broken bones. You've outlived the storm, but not everyone did, and the sky doesn't care. You move again, but something's changed. Not in the land, that still looks the same, wide and white and endless, but in the people. The storm stripped something away that hasn't come back. Before, you walked together in a shared silence, not friendly, not warm, but unified. Now that silence feels different, fractured, heavy. Each person walks as if alone, eyes down, shoulders hunched, not just from cold, but from the weight of suspicion. Every glance lingers a little too long. Every motion is watched. You feel it when you pass someone and they don't nod. You feel it when your own footfalls seem louder than they should. Hunger and cold were always there, gnawing at the edges. But now something else creeps in, something bitter. Everyone's thinner, everyone's tired, but the space between you has widened in ways that aren't about distance. The fight starts small, quiet. Someone accuses another of taking too many turns at the fire. Someone else claims a scrap of hide went missing from their bundle. It doesn't escalate, not at first. Just words, snaps, glares. You try not to listen. You try to stay neutral. But it's impossible to ignore how quickly the lines are forming. Who sits where at night? Who shares what? Who doesn't? Then someone finds a pouch of dried meat buried in the snow beneath a sleeping mat. Not much, a handful. But it was hidden, not shared. Someone screams. The man who hid it tries to explain, but no one listens. You don't step in. Neither does anyone else. He's beaten, not badly, not with weapons, but shoved, slapped, thrown into the snow, hard enough to bleed from the mouth. He doesn't fight back. Just curls into himself and lets it happen. Later, when the fire's going, he sits apart, clutching his ribs, his eyes swollen and hollow. No one offers him food. No one asks if he's all right. The next day, someone refuses to help dig the latrine pit. Says it's not their turn. Says they did it last time. It's a lie, you know that, but no one corrects them. They just leave the waste where it is, near camp, where the wind catches it and spreads the stench across the group. The elders would have punished that kind of thing once. Now, no one speaks. You shovel what you can alone, not out of duty, but to keep the smell from settling in your nose. You don't blame them for refusing, but you don't respect it either. Two brothers fight over a flint blade. A small one, well worn, not sharp enough to matter. It starts with shouting and ends with fists, both men flailing in the snow, while others look on. Blood spatters across the sled. One of them loses a tooth, the other cracks a rib. No one stops it. No one steps between them. You just watch until they're too tired to throw more punches, then keep walking. Later, one of them sharpens the blade in silence, his lips split and crusted black. You see a man throw another to the ground over firewood. Just a small bundle, barely enough to burn for an hour. They argue about who gathered it, about who needs it more, about whose turn it is. Then the taller one grabs the other by the collar and slams him into the snow. Hard. You hear the breath knocked out of him, the crack of his head hitting ice. Again, no one moves to stop it. You stand there, feet rooted, heart steady, and watch as the man takes the wood and walks away. The other lies there for a while, before getting up and limping back to his bundle. These things would have mattered before. There would have been judgment, discussion, maybe even punishment. Now everyone pretends not to see. Justice requires energy. So does outrage. No one has any left. The only rules that matter now are the ones that keep you breathing. Everything else is optional. You start sleeping with your cloak wrapped tighter. You stop turning your back on people at night. You count your belongings more often, even when you know you haven't used them. Not because you think someone will steal, but because you know someone already has. You don't trust anyone to protect you. Not really. And you don't blame them for not trusting you either. The children are quieter still. Those who are left. They no longer play. They no longer ask questions. They watch, wide-eyed and still. Their faces unreadable. Their voices soft if they speak at all. One boy throws a stone at a girl when she steps near his sleeping spot. It misses, but she flinches and doesn't come close again. No one scolds him. You don't even know who his parents are anymore. Then, without warning, one group separates. It happens in the morning. They pack up early, while the rest of you are still shifting beneath furs, groaning through stiff joints. 5 of them, 3 men, 2 women, lash their things to the last working sled. Not the lightest, not the sturdiest, just the one with runners that haven't cracked through completely. They don't speak loudly. They don't announce it. They just turn east and begin walking at a steady pace. One man glances back, once briefly. Then he looks away and keeps going. You don't say goodbye, no one does. There's a low murmur from the group, a flicker of movement as people shift in their places, unsure whether to follow. But no one moves. You all just watch the figures grow smaller. Back straight, heads low, the sled cutting a thin line across the snow. Soon, even that line is gone. The wind takes it like it always does. The absence settles in fast, not just the space they leave behind, but the weight of it. The knowledge that the group is now weaker, smaller, more brittle, that whatever strength came from numbers has bled out a little more. That if another storm comes, or another mammoth chase, or another failure, you'll have fewer hands, fewer backs, fewer people to keep the fire lit. The air feels emptier than before, not just because of who left, but because it reminds you that you could leave too, that anyone could, that there's no glue holding you together anymore. Just cold, just direction, just inertia. You shift your pack on your shoulder and move forward with the rest. No one talks for the rest of the day. You don't believe it at first. The ground begins to change beneath your feet, but you think it's just another hallucination, another trick of exhaustion. You've seen many, but this time it doesn't fade. The snow thins, the wind weakens, the white horizon, your constant, your captor, breaks. And in its place you see something that makes your chest seize with confusion before it even reaches hope. Trees, they're small at first, scrubby, crooked, barely more than saplings, battered by wind and ice. But they're real. You blink and they're still there, dotting the edge of the landscape, like the faint outline of a forgotten dream. Then you smell something else. Earth. Not just the scent of trampled snow or frozen dung, but wet dirt, mud, life. You step forward slowly, unsure whether you're about to fall into another patch of unstable frost. But the ground holds. You press onward. There is green here. Not much and not vibrant, but moss clings to the edges of stone, and lichens crawl across trunks. You haven't seen the likes of in months. Somewhere ahead, you hear the slow trickle of water. Not ice cracking, not melt hissing on a fire, but the movement of a stream. You begin to walk faster. So does the group, what's left of it. You no longer bother counting the dead. There were too many back on the steppe. Too many who vanished into snowdrifts, or lay down and refused to rise, or simply wandered off into the mist one morning and never returned. You know their faces, but not their number. Now there are fewer than 10 of you. Some walk upright, barely. Others shuffle. One is dragged on a makeshift sled, cobbled from split bone and mammoth leather. You lost the good sled to a crack in the ice a week ago. The rest of the gear followed it down. The people who went after it didn't return, but here the cold has lost its teeth. The wind still murmurs, but no longer howls. The sky is still pale and endless, but the sun has found its way back to the edge of things. You feel it against your face like a memory, distant and thin, but not hostile. You try to breathe deeper, and though it hurts, something in your chest loosens. You are not warm, but you are not dying as quickly. Ahead you find the stream. It's shallow, but it moves, over stones and through pockets of moss. You fall to your knees beside it without a word, and plunge your hands into the water. It burns at first, cold so sudden it feels like heat, but you don't pull away. You drink straight from your palms, unboiled, unfiltered, not caring what lives in it. It tastes of minerals, old stone, and cold light. It's the best thing you've tasted since you left the coast. The others follow. One man drops beside you and plunges his whole face into the stream, slurping noisily. Another dips a bone cup and offers it to the youngest girl, who is too weak to kneel. She drinks in silence. No one warns of contamination. No one speaks of discipline or sickness. The water flows. You drink. You lie back afterward and stare at the sky. It doesn't look much different, but it feels less threatening. A smear of white broken by pale blue. Your body begins to shake, not from cold this time, but from something else. Release. You realize your muscles have been clenched for so long, you no longer know what stillness feels like. You're not relaxed exactly, but your body isn't bracing for death anymore. You're just lying there. Someone starts to cry, not loudly, just the soft, broken hiccups of someone remembering how. You don't look to see who it is. You let them have it. You try to think about how long you've been walking. You can't. The days bled together somewhere back in Bering Strait. Maybe weeks, maybe months. Time doesn't pass in regular pieces out here. It drags and folds and sometimes disappears entirely. You remember burying someone, but not when. You remember losing your finger, but not which day. The march became everything. And now, here at the edge of it, your mind starts to lose its grip. Memories come loose like teeth. You remember your mother's face, but not her voice. You remember a joke someone told beside a fire, but not what the punchline was. You remember the shape of a spear you once owned, and the weight of it in your hand, and the day it cracked in the cold, and you didn't feel anything. You remember sleeping beside someone whose name you've forgotten. Maybe they're dead now. Maybe they left. Maybe they were never real. The others settle around the stream. No one makes camp, not properly. It's enough to sit, to lie. One man falls asleep with his hands still in the water. A woman wraps her arms around her knees and stares into the trees. A few crows call from a branch overhead, startling you with their voices. You'd forgotten birds could still live in a place like this. Someone tries to build a fire. It takes longer than usual. The moss won't catch and the sticks are too damp. But he keeps trying. You watch his hands tremble as he works the flint. His fingers are black at the tips. He doesn't stop. You sit for a long time beside the stream, knees drawn to your chest, fingers resting in the mud. The air is still. You try not to think too hard about what comes next. Not because there's a plan forming in your mind, but because there isn't one. You've walked for so long that stopping feels foreign. The silence around you is unfamiliar. Not dangerous, not protective, just empty. The kind of silence that used to mean something was wrong, but now only means that nothing is left to say. A few others gather stones or drift toward the edge of the trees, their movements mechanical. One tries to build a fire with damp sticks and a dull flint, tapping gently, as if afraid to wake the world. Another just sits, staring at the trees as though expecting someone to step out. No one does. You breathe in the stillness and it settles in your lungs like dust. You've reached the edge of something. You're no longer sure if it's the continent, the season, or just the end of your will. But you know this, the march is over. Whatever comes next, it's not this. You stay there, watching the light fade through bare branches. And when it finally goes, you don't stand. You just stay seated, eyes half closed, listening to the sound of water, and letting the cold creep in, not like a predator, but like an old friend who's come to sit with you in silence. Time passes, you've lost count of the days. They don't feel like progress. You don't celebrate, you don't speak, you just live, or something close to it. Of the few who remain, some drift away, south maybe, maybe east. They split off quietly, without words. One turns and walks toward the river with a pack and doesn't come back. Another leaves in the middle of the night. You don't follow, you don't ask. The only shared goal was to outlast the white. and you do. But something stays behind in that frozen place. Not just the dead, though there are many, but the parts of you don't notice falling off. Laughter, curiosity, the habit of calling people by name, the ease with which you used to remember songs. You survive, but not entirely. You walk with a limp now. Your fingers don't bend the way they should. Your voice grows quiet, even when you try to speak. Food is something you count, not enjoy. Fire is something you stare into, not gather around. You sleep lightly. You keep a stone by your side, even when you know you don't need it. Sometimes, in rare quiet moments, you try to remember who you were before. You reach back for your mother's face, your brother's laugh, the voice of the woman who died beside the stream. But they don't come back clearly. They blur at the edges. You see them in fragments, a smile without a name, a sound without a mouth. You don't know if it's memory or just something you invented to feel less hollow. The others who survive, if any do, don't remember you either. Maybe they carry a vague shape in their minds. A shadow who walked beside them. Someone who once handed them a pouch of melted snow or tied a cord around a sled. But they don't know your name. Maybe they never did. And even if they whisper something about you by a fire, it doesn't last long. The silence swallows everything. You're not special. You never were. You weren't the strongest or the fastest or the one with stories to tell. You were just one of many. One foot in front of the other. One pair of hands. One body that didn't stop when it had every reason to. You didn't lead anyone. You didn't change anything. You just endured. And now even that endurance feels like something that happened to someone else. Your dreams are slow and grey. Your bones ache when you sit too long. Your memories slip through you like water. When children come, and maybe they will, you won't tell them the full story. Just fragments, just pieces, just the parts you can stand to speak aloud. The world around you moves on. The forest swallows the path you walked. The bones of those who didn't make it lie buried under moss and mud. The wind softens. The animals return. If anyone ever passes this way again, they won't know what happened here. They'll see the land. They'll feel the cold, but they won't hear the footsteps. They won't feel the weight of those who came before. Maybe someday, someone finds a tooth, a scrap of hide, a cracked tool buried deep in the soil. They'll label it, catalogue it, call it early, primitive. They'll estimate your height, your age, your diet. They'll write your life into a chart, but they won't know your voice. They won't know the name you whispered to yourself as you walked. They won't know the people you watched disappear. You live on, but not in memory, not in story, just in the fact that you kept going. And even the ones who came after, those who found warmth and trees and softer days, are forgotten. Their languages die. Their graves collapse. Their words vanish from stone. Time doesn't remember anyone for long. It doesn't care who made it. It only cares that someone did. That's the truth of deep time. It forgets. Even those who live disappear. Even those who endure are folded into silence. Your steps leave no trace. Your breath fades into the wind. The past holds nothing tightly. It just moves. You survive. But survival doesn't mean being remembered. It only means you didn't stop. That brings us to the end of tonight's story. A long march across a land that no longer exists, where the cold was older than memory, and survival left no monument. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find a link to the Patreon in the description. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with other forgotten corners of history you'd like to see covered. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps others find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S., Amanda Lamke, and Rich Davis. Sleep well.